National Weather Service in Raleigh, and we're going to go ahead and go through our routine Monday briefing. We got a couple things to talk about here, so we'll go ahead and jump right in. At the moment, we are tracking a pretty strong cold front that's going to sweep through central North Carolina today. If you're joining this webinar from pretty much anywhere but the Triad, it's cloudy, it's overcast, there's a little bit of humidity in the air. But the front is just on our doorstep. As a matter of fact, it's coming into Davidson County, Forsyth County, where we're starting to see dew points drop off quite a bit. Skies are starting to clear out, and the winds are starting to pick up. And that's going to be kind of the main story with this front today, is the gusty winds that are going to accompany that front as it moves across the area. We could see some gusts up to about 35 miles an hour, maybe even 40 miles an hour at times. As that front moves through the area. And as such, that could result in some dangerous fire weather conditions across mainly the western Piedmont. I'll talk about that in a little more detail in a couple minutes here. But behind that front, we will see much colder temperatures across the area tomorrow. We'll be taking our highs, which are in the mid 60s today, and we're going to be replacing those with upper 30s to low 40s tomorrow. So tomorrow is going to be markedly cooler than what we've seen today. And then after that, temperatures are going to flatline pretty much near normal. Temps in the mid 50s, lower 50s, maybe in the north, upper 50s in the south, with lows in the upper 20s to mid 30s, which is generally within a few degrees of normal. I know all of last week we were on quite a roller coaster where it was real warm one day and then cool the next, real warm and then real cool the next day. Temps are going to flatline once we get this front through the area today, and then we recover toward the middle of the week. It looks like the majority of this week should be dry. Our next chance for rain comes late Friday night, perhaps just a little bit after sunset through the day Saturday, and then it looks like we should dry out by Sunday into next week. So let's take a look at precip here. I had mentioned briefly that the winds are going to be the main story with today's front. And that I think you will see pretty clearly in the precip amounts here. There's not much there, right? It's that first shade of green, which is just a few hundredths of an inch. I don't have the radar up to show you that, but there's a few showers out there now. There could be a brief shower between now and mid-afternoon, but this is not going to be a washout of a front when this thing comes through here. So not expecting much precip. Really, with this system, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you'll see those are all dry. And then the next opportunity you see for rain is Friday. And again, those precip chances are probably going to be reserved for very late Friday after sunset. And what you see there, those again are that first shade of green. So again, really not much in the way of decent rainfall. As such, probably not a surprise to anybody here, there's no threat for excessive rainfall. And it's going to be awfully hard to get severe weather if we don't have showers in the forecast, so we don't have any threat of severe weather. So that's certainly a good sign there. I did promise I would talk about the red flag warning that we have across a good portion of our area of responsibility, basically the western Piedmont Sand Hills. It does include portions of the Triangle. And this is really due to the winds associated with the front. Again, expect gusts 25 to 35, maybe it could touch 40 miles an hour briefly. And even though it doesn't exactly feel dry out there at the moment, when that front comes through, the humidities are going to drop pretty considerably. So that combination of gusty winds and low relative humidities is what prompted us to go ahead and issue the red flag warning for a good portion of the area today. Okay, so that goes into effect here pretty soon at noon, at the top of the hour. At noon, it goes into effect. And then it's going to run until 7 o'clock tonight. Let's take a look at some medium range maps here. So the forecast for next week, starting with next Monday, what do things look like in terms of temperature and precipitation? Well, temperature, it's really hard to say. Equal chances of above, near normal, or below normal temps. So no clear sign that we're going to have a significant warm up or a significant cool down. Okay, but there are some signals in the guidance that the pattern will be a little more active in terms of precip potential, and that's what you see on the right image, with anywhere from a 33 to maybe as much as a 50% odds of above normal precip potential during this period. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean it's a slam dunk. It doesn't mean this whole period is going to be wet, but it would appear maybe things will get a little bit more active by the time we're doing this recording and this webinar next week. So certainly stay tuned. But at least, going back to previous couple slides there, we have this system today. We'll have one on Friday. And then it does look like it dries out into the weekend, into early next week. But here's what the forecast looks like beyond that. Oh, let's see here. I wanted to make sure I touched on this real quick for today. You see a couple of hazards that are highlighted. I had mentioned the wind, and certainly I just showed the slide on the fire weather, and that's why those two are highlighted in the elevated or significant categories. The extreme cold, we are going to see some cold temperatures, as I had mentioned, behind the front late tonight, and those are going to linger into Tuesday. Wednesday, not so much. If there are any areas of cold temps on Wednesday, it would be kind of along the Virginia border, north of Roxborough, up in those areas. So not too terribly significant whatsoever. I did want to briefly mention the fire weather potential for tomorrow and Wednesday. We're not overly concerned about the need for another red flag warning tomorrow, but it will be noticeably drier tomorrow, and there will be some degree of breeziness. So we are going to monitor that. Again, not thinking we're going to need a red flag warning, but fire weather concerns could be in the cards for tomorrow. Stay tuned. If we do end up issuing any sort of statement or anything like that, we'll be sure to push that out to everybody and make sure you have that. By the time we get to Wednesday, the winds are really going to relax. It may still be dry out there, but the winds are going to relax quite a bit, so it shouldn't be too widespread. If there are any fire weather concerns, they would be pretty limited. Okay, let's wrap it up here and summarize everything. So we got the strong cold front moving through today. We are going to see much colder temperatures tomorrow, with highs, 20, 25 degrees colder than what they are today. After that, temps are going to be within a few degrees of normal. On the chart on the right, you see the temperature at selected cities across the area. You see a lot of 50s on there for highs. That's generally where we should be this time of year. Depending on where you're at, it should be low 50s out, in the Triad and Triangle, maybe mid 50s down toward the Sandhills, Southern Coastal Plains. So we'll be in the ballpark, maybe a little bit below, but we should be somewhere within a few degrees of normal, pretty much all the way through early next week. We do have our next chance of precip coming in late Friday into Saturday, but it should dry out Sunday into next week. And then the biggest hazards and impacts are going to be today, to be honest, the gusty winds, which could lead to some fire weather concerns depending on where you are at.